Welcome back. I'm Tyler here with my brother Ryan, and today we are breaking down the Baltimore Ravens 2023 season and then also previewing the 2024 offseason as well. We're going to be going over all where they ended up in each of the passing and rushing categories and some other statistics as well. Also going over the draft picks and team needs. Ryan, let's pull up the slide deck here. Ravens ended up going 13-4. They did end up winning the playoff game, but unfortunately lost to the Kansas City Chiefs in the AFC Championship game. I think I will always believe that they were just the better team, but unfortunately, I think it was one of those games where I would say just experience. I think maybe kind of took hold in that game, unfortunately. But still, great season. Lamar Jackson cleared unanimous MVP, and I think that's kind of where I want to start out a little bit. Is offensively, this was one of the best Ravens offenses I think that we've seen. I think Zay Flowers has been a great hit. He had an amazing game against Kansas City. Just unfortunately, just had a couple of just unfortunate errors. I would say he had a mental lapse, which caused that personal foul, and then the fumble at the inch-yard line that goes out of bounds, which I'm back and forth. I would say on how I really actually I'm not really back and forth. I'm pretty confident I don't like that rule, but I still. I still think that this offense has just been set up perfectly around Lamar Jackson, and I think they need to go and get a bigger X receiver that it has the deep threat capability because then it's only going to open things up. That can stay healthy, of course.
Yeah, because Rashad Bateman is that guy. He just is not.
He hasn't really played that much. I always forget about him. So, but I think if they can go get a guy like that, and we're going to get that here in a second, then I mean, just imagine Zay Flowers just running all around, and with how dominant that offensive line is and how elusive Lamar Jackson is. I mean, there's just going to be so much space for all those guys to run. So I want to throw it over to you, get your thoughts on the offense, and then kind of have you segue over to the defensive side of the ball and how you think they did this year.
Yeah, so I mean, looking at it first, you're going to see that they were the 21st ranked passing offense, and I don't think that just their passing yards, I don't think tells the full story. How efficient they were in the passing game, it was incredible. I mean, I think Lamar Jackson completed almost 70% of his passes. They were just phenomenal, and they were so hard to defend because they were just absolutely so balanced. And I think back to that Rams game, and there were times I thought the Rams defensive line had Lamar dead to rights, and he just would escape, and then he ended up throwing that a bomb to Zay Flowers. He had Odell Beckham on a few. It was just really impressive to watch. And I will say that sacks number probably should be higher if there's any other quarterback back there besides Lamar. And I really think he just he made this offense what it was. And I know every quarterback usually is if you have a good quarterback, you have a good offense. But this offense was truly special because of Lamar. So there, and then defensively, one of the most well-rounded, productive defenses in the league. They led the league in sacks with 60. They led the league with turnovers with 31. They had the 6th-ranked passing defense, which to me was very surprising. I think if you look at that cornerback room outside of Marlon Humphreys, who did have some injuries this year, Kyle Hamilton and then some other guys, and I think they were really well coached. They played really disciplined football, and they were fantastic. Also, it helps when you have one of the top offenses in the league that teams eventually have to throw into this defense. So,
I was going to add on to that. It helps actually when your front seven is just ungodly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then, I mean, running defense, they were average, but that's really kind of all they had to be, because teams weren't really going to be able to come in and keep up with this offense if they came in and ran and were trying to run the ball. So, it definitely, I definitely think it could make some improvements here, but again, at the same time, just a really, really solid team. And I agree with you with what you said at the beginning. To me, they were the best team in football this year. They just ran into a Patrick Mahomes-willed Kansas City Chiefs team, and
they just didn't have their best game.
Yeah, they just didn't have their best game, and even then, they had the opportunities to go win that game, they just didn't. So,
I think the one thing too that, and my final point is, we talk so much about, and the Ravens fans, I think will like this. Talked about how dominant the Browns defense was, and they were. I mean, they would go have some games where they're the best defense in the league. They were nowhere near as consistent, I think, as the Ravens
Yeah.
defense. I mean, just week in and week out. I mean, the most points that they gave up was 29 to. Oh, sorry. I was looking, that was first downs that the offense got actually in that game. They did give up 33 to the Browns, and that was Deshaun Watson's last game, and then they gave up 31 to the Rams. But both of those offenses were some of the most potent offenses in the league. That's just going to happen. In general, though, man, they had so many games with under 10 points scored in the offense. So they're just consistently just one of the best defenses week in and week out. So let's move on, though, now to some of their free agents and then their team needs. Because one of the things, too, we're talking about how dominant that defense is. At the same time, though, they have a bunch of defensive free agents, starting with probably their MVP of the defense, Justin Metabuke. And so he's a free agent here. It's going to be interesting, too, also with Mike McDonald moving over to the Seattle Seahawks head coaching position. And at the same time, too, the Seahawks, I do believe, have more cap space. I'll have to go back and if you could double check real quick while I say that. But he really exploded this year under Mike McDonald, and a team like Seattle needs a defensive tackle. So that's going to be a storyline that's going to be extremely interesting to watch. Brent Urban, David Clowney, they both had great seasons as well. And so both edge rushers are in free agency. A lot of key linebackers, as you can see there, are in free agency, and also a lot of secondary guys as well. Offensively, too, OBJ, Devin Duvernay, and Nelson Aguilar are all hitting free agency. Those are just kind of more – I put those more because – they contributed this season, but
they're role players.
Role players. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say Seattle has negative 1.6 million, whereas they have negative 800K.
Oh, so they're about in the same boat. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think it could be a crapshoot then. And so he'll probably want to stay in Baltimore here, depending on what happens. Just because, they're still a Super Bowl winning team. They just have to go and replace these guys. And that, to me, talking about all this, is re-signing this defensive talent is the number one priority. You can go and find and draft younger talent, yes, but I think you got to re-sign Metabuke, you got to re-sign Patrick Queen. I think I kind of agree with you when it comes to these secondary guys. I mean, maybe for depth, I think you can take it or leave it. If that's a place where you're going to go and draft young, I think go and get a younger secondary guy and try to build around him. Like you saw what happened with Kyle Hamilton and everything.
Yeah, well, like Rock Ya-Sin, I think is a talented young corner that I think probably needs to stay in a place for more than 1 year. For me, I think if you're gonna go the route of extending these guys, you're gonna have to get them on really team friendly contracts, and then you're still gonna have to probably invest draft picks into that spot anyways, and so that is where I do think at 30. To me, they're a prime candidate to trade up, especially with 2 4th-round picks. They could definitely get up into the mid-20s and kind of snag one of the final cornerbacks to fall there. Because I do think that 15 to 25 range is going to be where we'll probably see Terrion Arnold, Kool-Aid McKinstry, Nate Wiggins, Quinion Mitchell. Cooper DeJean, to me, is at the top of that list. He'll probably go much higher. But again, you have 5 guys there. You also have a lot of offensive tackles. And I will say, I do think interior offensive line is listed as a need. I really agree with that. To me, the sweet spot for that is going to be round 3 to round 4. And just you can get a lot of good, talented guards in that spot. Really, most guards can play center, and most centers can play guards. Can play at guard. It's just kind of fluid. There is a little bit more of a nuance to be.
Yeah.
Well, should say a little bit. There's a lot more of a nuance, but they can learn it for sure.
Well, and that's actually kind of a good segue to what I was talking about here. It's to show you how many free agents that they have. I didn't have the space actually even to put in John Simpson, Kevin Zeitler, or even Sam Mustafer, 3 interior offensive linemen that hit free agency. The 2 first names were their right and left guards.
Yeah. Also, they don't need a center. Tyler Linderbaum.
I know
is their center. They need the right and left guard.
Yeah.
So.
And to your point, that where they're picking at 30, if they don't want to trade up, a guy like Graham Barton or maybe even Troy Fatano as well, guys who can kick inside.
Jordan Morgan is heavily on their radar, I think.
Yeah. Could he kick inside?
He probably will. So he measured out the Senior Bowl. So the cutoff this is such a weird thing, but the cutoff at the NFL is 33 inches for arm length. And Peter Skoronski last year was one of the top offensive tackle prospects. And he is now playing guard because he could not cut it at tackle at the NFL. Well, I don't say he could not cut it because he probably could, but he had 32.5-inch arms. So like we're talking about a half inch in his length between like guys that are like making tens of millions of dollars playing left tackle at the NFL. Like, and there are no left tackles at the NFL. There are left tackles at 33-inch arms, but at 32.5, almost exclusively those guys play guard. And Jordan Morgan measured in at 32.25-inch arms.
Gotcha.
And so like that's really gonna hurt his draft stock, especially for a guy that was already at the back end of the first round. I mean, there's a chance that he could make it to 62. Also, at 30, I think there's going to be teams like the Patriots or like the Vikings or the Broncos that are going to be looking to trade back up into the first round to potentially draft a quarterback and have that fifth-year option. So they could be a team that they trade back out of the first round and then they invest just more picks into the offensive line that way. So like that's a strategy there. But like wide receiver, there's going to be a ton of talent. I would love that. To me, this would be a great fit for Brendan Rice. He's a really athletic big man. He just needs refinement. And I think you put him in a system with Todd Monken at the helm. You have Lamar Jackson, who's going to create space for wide receivers by themselves. You also have Zay Flowers. I think he'd be a really good complement there. And I think you could get him in the third round also. So like, again, they have a lot of options in this upcoming draft.
Oh yeah. It's going to be good. It's it's good to see them come back. I think that they'll bounce back here. A lot of good opportunities. I think they just need to re-sign the key talent here, try and find some space, and then also get a couple more weapons. I feel so. It's going to be interesting, I will say.
Yeah, for sure. So let's go ahead and wrap up this video here. If you guys have not already, please go ahead and like and subscribe. Leave a comment down below on what you want to see the Ravens do this offseason. Who are some of your free agents that you would like them to target? Who are some of the guys you like in the draft for them to go after as well? Let us know down below. And on that, we'll see you guys next time.